Okay. Well, we've lost Penny, so perhaps she'll come back in a minute. Yeah, so fresh perspective on what you've learned already, and please will you put any light bulb moments, um, fresh perspective takes really into the chat as we go, or come off mute if you want to, so that you can just share. I think with a small group, it's nice to actually hear each other's voices, isn't it? And watch Holly eat spaghetti, which is always good. Looks lovely. Okay, what's been really nice about preparing for tonight was that I've actually dipped into the recruiting section of our YouTube channel, because I didn't want to just use one piece of training that we've done. I mean, quite recently, let's face it, in the developing your skills, we did 3 sessions on recruiting. If you haven't watched those in their entirety, I'd really recommend that you do that. And actually, even if you have and you were there for the training, with what you come out of the next hour with, I would really recommend you go and watch them again, because I think sometimes we hear things at the right time, don't we? And there is likely to be new information in some of that material that is relevant to you for now that wasn't relevant even a few weeks ago. But what I've also done is I've pulled in some of the other videos that are in that recruiting section. So a couple of them are little soundbite videos. We're going to watch the whole thing. Others, I've actually gone and I've lifted a few minutes out of various different videos. So what I would say is that actually looking through anything in that whole section is going to be useful to you. And I know, Hazel, you love my do, review, apply principle. And I think actually that the resources are there, not just so that you can catch up with them if you miss the live, they're there as a continual bank of resource for when you need a fresh perspective on things. So, please do use that section as such. So the first one we're going to have a look at is just a bit on mindset, really, just a little 2-minute video on why recruit. So if I just go to the first share here, what I'd love you to do is, as we watch this, is just to be thinking, right, what is your takeaway from this today? This is just a couple of minutes video. What is your light on moment? Okay. So why recruit? It's a really good question to answer, and it would be a really good idea to jot down some of your own answers to that. Chat to your upline leader. What are the reasons that you're recruiting? But actually, in this video, what I want to do is turn your attention away from your reasons for recruiting others to the individual people that you're considering asking, and ask you to come from the perspective of their angle on this. So what are the reasons why this would be a best fit for them? And as we know, there are people in our business who are best suited to being customers. There are others who are best suited to being hosts. And what we're doing in this part of our business is looking for those for whom joining and being consultants like us is the best fit for them. Let's face it, we thought it was the best option for us. So there will be others out there for whom this is a good idea. And it's not for us to decide for them. I think I've heard a million times people start making a list of customers and hosts and people that they know who could do with a bit of extra money, who already love Neal's Yard Remedies as a brand, could do with a fresh challenge and a new thing, a bit of personal growth, something for them. All the reasons why people join, but they decide for them in their own heads. So almost as they're writing the name on a piece of paper, they're thinking, yeah, but she probably won't because, and it's really important not to do that. It's not our right to make that decision for them. It's actually our responsibility to start the conversation and let them make the decision for themselves in an informed way. So where do you even begin with that? Well, you start by jotting the names of the people that you know down, and then you start to look for the reasons why it might be good for them to join as consultant. So you can look out for other videos in the practical tips of how we do this, but let's agree now that we're going to put our own reasons for recruiting aside and we're going to look for the best fit for the people who ought to be consultants. Look for the reasons why they should join and plough our energies into walking in their shoes and seeing this from their perspective. Okay, so there's the first one. Let's stop the share. First of all, please feel free to unmute. If you had that is the thing for me, that's my takeaway from that couple of minutes. Please feel free to share it. Hi, Serena. Nice to see you, lovely.
I think my take on that is probably not to make the decision for them.
Yeah,
which is something I think that I'm guilty of. Oh no, they won't want to do that because yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Hazel, did you put that into the chat in response to my question there? Get so excited they want to join. So do you want to expand on, because that's almost the opposite, rather than assuming for them, that's implying too much enthusiasm. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so it's trying to find that balance of once they've indicated that they're interested in joining, me not letting my enthusiasm for how brilliant it is overtake actually just stepping back and listening to their reasons and what drew them towards, made them think about it.
Yeah, okay. I think the tricky bit of this stage is this is all happening in our own heads and on our own bit of paper in secret, isn't it? This is not actually a conversation with the other person. So the danger is there. We can end up getting lost in our own heads and not actually include them in the conversation. I think for me, as I listened to it, as I was prepping, it was about shortening the time that I consider actually speaking to them about it. If it's not my job, then get on with it and start the conversation. And I tend to wander around it, wondering and having the whole conversation 16 times before actually including them in that. I can see from a couple of smiles that I'm not the only one who does that. Anybody else before we move on from this fairly basic beginning bit? No? Yeah, Jenny, you've unmuted?
Yeah, well, for me, it's remembering that as much as I would like to recruit, not everyone, it doesn't suit everyone. And I have the first girl who I recruited actually is better suited to being a customer. And she can't remember her login and things, and she just would rather just buy through me anyway. And it's not always just about recruiting, it's about valuable customers as well, and looking after them.
Yeah, and I think that what you've just said there about somebody ending up like the wrong shaped peg in the wrong shaped hole is really important, because like Hazel said, you can have enough enthusiasm or enough powers of persuasion to talk someone into it. But what we're doing at this stage is thinking, right, okay, so it's not up to me to make the decision. So all I'm doing is looking for reasons why the clues really, why I think this might be a possibility. Actually, they've got to own them for themselves further down the line, haven't they? Which they can't do unless they are actually involved in the conversation and entertaining it with you to decide whether this is the best fit for them, rather than us deciding whether it's the best fit. Persuaded people early on and then they drop off. Absolutely, Holly. Yeah, I think quite a lot of us can relate to that. And I think, actually you don't spread the mission, you don't earn income, you don't begin the ripple effect of influence on that person's contacts by them joining. It's about what happens afterwards that counts. It's about their ownership of what they're doing that then spurs them on into action, isn't it? So actually the key bit is them owning what they want out of this, because unless they've owned that at the beginning, it's going nowhere. And the awkwardness that you just described, Jenny, is what happens. But please be reassured, I think looking out on the sea of faces, all of us who have recruited have fallen into that trap. So don't let it upset you. Just begin again more intelligently. That's, definition of failure, isn't it? It's like, that didn't work. Let's do that differently next time. Okay, let's keep up with the chat. Unmute quickly if you've got anything else to add to that bit. Helen, 2 square pegs in round holes. Yeah, time to move on. Having said that, I think sometimes, good definition of fail there in the chat as well, have a look. Sometimes people can be moved into a different shaped hole, to use the peg analogy. It's okay to say, I don't feel like this is working. and actually you were one of the first people I introduced to MYRO. Can we have a conversation about rebooting this so that it's giving you what you wanted out of it at the beginning? Or maybe it's saying, do you know, I never asked you what you wanted to get out of this. And that's a conversation I think we're missing here. And so let's have it now. So I think it's okay. You know, as Xenia said in one of the videos I reviewed today, we're independent consultants. You're not responsible for somebody else's success. You are only there to support what they're doing. But actually, if by just saying, come on, this isn't working, and starting that conversation, you can help them along that road, then do that. So those of you who've got team members, just have a think. If there's somebody that resonates for, put it down on your action list. Just think, right, I'm going to start that conversation and say, come on, how do we need to change this up? Xenia, anything to add to this little bit?
I'm just laughing. Well, two things. One is about us listening properly, you know, the whole 2 ears business, and making sure what they say to us, we're actually listening rather than getting overwhelmed with our own enthusiasm for blue bottles. And I'm just chuckling, as you say, about people to reconnect with. There's a couple of my team who, one of them before Christmas wanted to step up and, you know, become a team leader and put more effort in. So we started doing some real directional chats with her, just to go, right, you need to do this, you need to do that, which is what she wanted anyway. She then disappeared, and I found out later on she's had a really hard time. So I picked it up again, and I said, you know, I was thinking of going to this pub one evening, which is halfway between us, and seeing if a couple of other people want to come and just find out where you're at with Neil Shard Remedies and have a chat. Be nice just to see you. Oh, tumbleweed. So I'm sat here thinking, well, I'm just going to say to Sian, so what do we do with the people who are just, we think we can re-engage and say, this didn't really work out, how are we going to get back there? And then they're just like, yeah, bye.
Yeah. Well, I think you can only ever bring 50% to any dynamic in, you know, any relationship, can't you? It has to be two-way. What I think we need to know as recruiters and as people who in general are givers and want to help others, you know, that is the kind of person that the recruiting community of Neil Shard Remedies attracts. What we have to do is have permission to know I have done everything I could to facilitate that person's progress, but there wasn't the matched effort. So give yourself the chance to go, I've done everything I could, and then get off. So in that situation, Xenia knows that, she, you know, you do know that. You have done everything you can to make that work. If actually they don't reply, probably there's something in there that means that they don't want to take up the matched effort dynamic of business support, which is what it's about. And I think, you know, sometimes we can end up in a position where we're having conversations with people at tricky times in life, and it's right that we're supportive and caring of each other. You know, it's one of the other lovely things about our community. But in the context of recruiting, this is about supporting somebody else's progress in the business. We're not counsellors. Most of the time, we're not best friends. We are there to support their progress in MYRO. And I think that is something I have to keep reminding myself of. You know, in the dynamic of relationship, you can only bring 50% to the table.
Yeah.
I think it's also helpful, actually, if rather than fixating on one person, you've got other people to go away and contact, or other people to go away and recruit, other people to support, which is, you know, the nice thing about it, you getting past the first one or two. That really helps you move on.
Yeah, then I did a bit of a grumpy moment. It was like, no, just leave it, for goodness sake. It's obviously not the right time for her. Like you say, I know that on this call, we all know that. I know everyone here, you know, you've got experience of recruiting and dealing with team members. But I suppose it's also for everyone to be reassured that we all go through it. We all get ghosted. We all, you know, it's just part of what we do. And I had to just have a chat with myself about moving on.
Yeah, and sometimes, I mean, you and I are good examples of that. Having someone else in the business, whether that's your upline support or a peer in the business, that you can say, actually, I just need to have a moan about this, or I just need to say I was a bit gutted that didn't come to anything. You know, that it's helpful, isn't it, to share it sometimes in order to move on. But I think the key bit is the looking in the mirror. Some of you've heard me talk about that concept from John Maxwell. He says, you know, the exceptional leaders are the ones who are willing to look in the mirror and have that conversation with themselves. Is there something I can do that will change this up? And I think actually to be able to send back a message, you know, if things are not good at the moment and now's not a good time to pick up my suggestions, I'll let you be in touch with me, and please know that I'll be here to support you when you're ready, puts the ball firmly and ever so nicely back in their court. And you know you've done everything you can to keep that connection. Because as you said, Xenia, it's easy to assume, isn't it? Things like, oh, she doesn't like me, or she's ignoring me. And then you discover later they've had a hard time and actually they've just been overwhelmed in life. So I think, you know, put some way of building a bridge, and then don't feel you need to walk over it.
I often use the phrase, you know, the door is always open.
Yeah, that's nice.
Because it's just a nice way of just going, you know, it's, you know, it's, you can come back, you know, we can chat whenever. And I was going to say something else, but my memory escapes me.
Okay, yeah, and Holly, you know, the experience just helps us handle it better, doesn't it? You know that from your own journey. It doesn't take away the hurting bits. It's always difficult to get knockbacks. Right, okay, so maybe there are people, going back to the first video, that you're thinking best fit that perspective. So this isn't about recruiting incentives. It's not about what I want out of recruiting. This is about considering it from their perspective. Who are the best fit people who spring to mind? If you've got people who've been on your radar in your business recently, who haven't been on your original list of people to have conversations with potentially, put them down on that list. Jenny, in your new area, best fit people might not be people who love Neal's Yard Remedies. This is true for all of us, actually, not just for Jenny. Maybe it is personality.
Yeah, because I did one little fair before Christmas. For various reasons, it's taken me a while to sort of get back to doing this properly. I did a fair at Christmas, and very few people have heard of Neal's Yard Remedies. But everyone came over to my stand because that's the joy of the diffuser. Everyone goes, "Oh, what's that?"
Yeah.
And so I'm actually looking forward to talking to people who don't know about it. And that's, yeah, and finding people in other ways.
Yeah, and actually fairs and events and any kind of party, workshop, gathering of people, one of the recruiting games I love to play is, so who do I want in my team then? And it's nothing to do with conversation. It's totally about who's the person who's helping everybody else, who is quietly selling your product to the person sitting next to them going, I love this, I've already got this. Who is the life and soul of the party that you think, you're such a laugh, I'd want to work with you. So it's not even the kind of obvious clues about income or love of the brand or whatever. It's just who just kind of has neon lights around them. And if that makes you think of somebody, if you just think, I would love to work with that person, jot them down. I had a conversation today with a guy who is now a father of two, who I've known since he was 7, and his lovely wife. I just want her to be a consultant because I just want her to be able to have something that works flexibly around their 2 under 2-year-olds. And she's got an amazing, I know, Celia's eyes just crossed. She's got an amazing brain. She's a great people person. Doesn't really know much about the product. I gave her some baby stuff when she had the boys, but that's about it. But actually my recruiting filter has been, I'd like to work with you. And I'd love this just to be something that is you being able to be with your boys and something for you on the side. So I'm seeing a few of you jotting things down, which is great. I'm going to screen share the next video. How to make a list of people. So again, let's have some light on moments. Look at that for an enthusiastic face to start us all off. It's terrible watching videos of yourself. And now it's time to start brainstorming that list. Who do you put on the list? Well, you may well have started a contact list when you were a new joiner. A frank list, you might have called it, and it's a list of all the people you know. So you might be a mind mapper and you might be a list maker. I'm just going to say, while you're watching this video, maybe categories rather than specific names will be helpful to expand your list. Whichever way works best for you, but the idea is that you get the names of everybody you know down on a piece of paper. And hidden in that list will be some people who want to connect with your business as customers, some who want to connect as hosts, and some who are best off being consultants, and others who are just frankly not interested, and that's fine too. They can still be your friends. But for the purpose of this exercise, we're just looking for the potential consultants. We're looking for the best fit for them to join. And when you think you've done everybody you can think of, then go through your phone contacts and your social media accounts and your customer lists. If you haven't actually got a separate list with all your customers in, go through the order forms. You know, separate issue, have a customer list. But if you haven't done that, go through your order forms from the last few months and just add those people in as well. And that's your first job, brainstorm. What happens when you do this exercise is that the most obvious people get emptied out of your head first. And it's almost like that frees up space for other people to come into what you're thinking. So actually, you'll probably grind to a halt after just a few names. And then if you stay with the exercise, more names will come. And stay with it longer and more names will come. And when you think you've reached a bit of a block, have a look down the list and think, right, how do I know that person? I know that person through an exercise class I'm part of. Who else do I know in the exercise class? So you're imagining yourself in the scene where you know that person, and then that will trigger memory of other people who are part of the same exercise. Then pick somebody different that you know from a different sector and do the same process. That's your first job in finding people who might want to join. Okay, any comments? Or is that all blinking obvious?
I was just going to say, Sian, it's right that when you first start writing a list, how many times have I started a frank list from scratch again?
I think so far 16,482.
Yeah, but it's always the same names that you say first, isn't it? So there's a lot of truth in how do you get through, you know, Rootle to those people that you rarely think about.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I've just written that down about how do I know them, to think about widening my prompts.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And the other thing I realised as I was watching that video is that there are always the reports. If you haven't got a customer list, you can go back through any name you've ever put in the ordering system. I didn't think of that when I was doing it. I'm not re-recording it. Anything else? Holly, what does brainstorming mean?
Just thinking about people and just thinking really about people when, oh, I haven't contacted that person who was interested, and I had somebody who was interested in joining. She ordered once from me and then said next time when I need to top up in spring I'll join. So I always find these things really helpful in like giving me like triggering something else I need to do. Do you know what I mean? Even if sometimes it's not recruiting wise, there's always something. So that's why I always like brainstorm about like advertising showcases, which then lead to recruits and thinking about people. And I've got one person who will be a great host. I've just got to knuckle her down. She's the one that joked that it'd be a fanny or face party. She couldn't decide what it would be, so she went, are we fanny, faces, feet, which one? So I keep speaking to her. So yeah, it's just things like that I find I'm just brainstorming about every time when you talk about categories and things. I'm like, I don't know, names just, as Michelle said, names just come up, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They do. And actually, when I remember the first ever Frank list I didn't start with names. I just put like different sections of my life round a piece of paper, and that's different from names. So if that helps, Holly, yeah, she likes that idea, she can write that down.
That's helpful.
Yeah, okay. I think the key thing is to come at it from different angles. And like you said, Michelle, if you've only ever done the first layer, making yourself stay for the next bit and potentially adding customers to that list who weren't your customers when you started, if you haven't done a frank list for a while. What are we going to do about Lorraine's moral dilemma in the chat? Lorraine, do you want to tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, so I have a particular downline who only engages when she wants to engage, but she is a therapist and she goes for therapies, and did say to me about one of her who she goes to have a therapy with, likes the Wild Rose Beauty Pop. And I said, well, why don't you give her the opportunity to join? And she'll just blanket and say, she hasn't got time for things like this. She's a very busy therapist. And it like gets to the point where it just triggers me a little bit, because it implies everybody else got all the time in the world doing nothing. But yeah, and then I met one of her friends today who started talking to me about Neil's Yard remedies. And it's like, do I just go ahead and offer the opportunity if somebody else is blocking that opportunity? It's a dilemma, isn't it?
Well, we've got two, I don't know, thoughtful faces, and we've got two people doing this. So let's open up the discussion on that one. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to say is, who is this about?
This partly is about me. I wanted to build my team, but also meeting other people briefly through like a third party who show interest. And the next, if it wasn't through a third party, I would be saying to them, well, if you find it a struggle buying the Neil's Yard that you want to buy, join as a consultant and you'll get some discount. But I feel like I can't say that if the third party is blocking me usually from saying that. Does that make sense?
It does. Have a look in the chat. As Xenia has often teased me, I did stand up at Autumn Conference a few years ago and basically told 350 consultant, this isn't about you, which I did. She was like, I can't believe you got away with that. How did you get up there and say this isn't about you? But it is absolutely true. This is about whether it is the best fit for her to be a consultant. The very fact that her friend is not offering her that is beside the point. If you don't, well, there are 6, 8 other people on the call who are happy to offer it to her.
Yeah.
Someone's going to.
Yeah.
And I
It's not fair.
okay. I think it's okay. Yeah, I agree with you, Holly. I don't think it's fair. I think it's okay if your friend or the other consultant comes back to you on it to say, well, I did suggest to you that you mentioned it to her and you told me that you didn't think she'd want to. So
and that's really selfish, because that lady might want to join actually, and that's not very nice of you.
But we're not going to say it like that, are we, Holly?
No, we're not going to say it like that.
Not
but
with
you
that
me and Holly
want
that you
to.
do.
Yeah, because it's like it doesn't seem very well. It's just it's
Look at
it's
Xenia, Holly.
inclusive.
Look at Xenia.
Oh no, I can't see Xenia's face. Is she head in hands? It's just
Like
it's
this.
just not. I'd be like, well, just give them an opportunity. It doesn't feel fair for them not to have the opportunity. And if you're going to kindly offer it to them, then you're a good person and you win. Bye bye.
I think, Lorraine, Helen's got a slightly more drastic approach. I think, Helen, you seem to be obsessed with moving. Now we're changing your identity and moving house. I'm
going for Helen's suggestion.
I think it's a little bit drastic just to change your identity. The reality is, if this is about the person who wants to join.
Call yourself Jeff.
Call yourself Jeff. I know we're losing it now.
So how about you give the lady the opportunity to decide who she wants to join?
Yes.
I like that.
That's a much more diplomatic way of saying it, Xenia. Much more diplomatic. I like that.
Thank you, Holly. I don't have to become an emoji in my own little square tonight, which is what I did become.
You did look like that one that's scared that goes like the scream. Yeah, you did.
All I can say is watch out dog walkers tomorrow, because Holly and I are on it. We're going to be fighting for them, aren't we? Watch out whoever's in that park tomorrow.
Yeah, I think there was some discussion about working out who's going to do which play groups and which dog walks and all the rest of it around Pulborough, wasn't there? Yes.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you managed to work it out diplomatically, but with Abby as well.
Absolutely.
Have you got t-shirts printed up with "Join Me"?
Yeah.
Me, not her, with an arrow on it. Yeah. Okay, so Lorraine, seriously, the options then are offer it to her and go for it if she decides to join, or offer it to her, have that conversation and say to her, look, I know you're also friends with so-and-so. I presume that so-and-so is not actually doing so much in the business. So you might just need to diplomatically say, you know, just so you know, we're doing this to different levels in the business, and it will be up to you who you decide you want to join up under.
Yeah, I think it's fair to be open and say, whoever you join, if you choose to go ahead with the business, they will benefit in the long run.
Yeah.
Because then everyone knows where everyone stands, and then there isn't any, because I think we're all concerned about those awkward conversations. Well, I would be awkward conversations in the future with your downline going, we unit my recruit, and now look at her, she's a regional leader or something.
Yeah.
Cool, that'd be
Tough
nice.
tits, tough tits. You didn't get in there quick enough. Tough tits.
No,
Or
no,
not-
back to
or not,
emoji.
yeah.
Okay,
Or not,
Hollywood
Holly, I
would-
should recruit because then you benefit anyway.
yeah.
I'm only joking. I'm joking.
Because in this situation, Serena, it is all about you.
No, not at all.
No, it should be. How far do you want to go?
Not on Holly's toes, that's for sure.
No, I can't say I blame you.
But I think it's about being clear with people without without leading questions, without, I just think it's clarity of people do benefit, whoever joins. I mean, your downline might not benefit very much because if she's not doing anything, then she won't earn from it, but you still will in the long run. But if it's better for her to have that direct contact with you. But I just think it's about, well, it's always about communication, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's really helpful, actually, just being clear and giving the person that opportunity to make the decision. But at least she gets the opportunity.
And I have had the same dilemma with a couple of people where I've just wanted them to sign, well, with me as opposed to somebody else. And I think it's also all right to say, one thing I would suggest to you is that you have conversations with anybody that you're thinking of joining up with to find out whether each person is going to be able to support you the way that you're going to want.
Yeah.
Because actually, if she doesn't want any input, it probably won't make any difference. But if she joins inadvertently under the wrong person and is expecting somebody who's connected with what's going on, she might be disappointed.
Yeah.
And in the long run, if she met somebody at an event next week and joined them that's nothing to do with your team, but has a bad experience, then it might mean she wouldn't rejoin somebody good in the long run either.
Yeah.
So I think there's lots of angles on it.
That's helpful.
Let
Good
me know
moral
how the
dilemma.
conversation goes, Lorraine. I want to know now. So you're going to have
Right,
to
there's
have it.
two. Got two.
Oh, good. Go for it. Right. So my question now is, in your little brainstorm of the last few minutes and wherever you're at with your sparkles list, how many have you got currently that you're mulling over? Just count them up while I shut my blinds because I'm now living in a goldfish bowl. Stick it in the chat when you... That's great, Helen. And I think, don't wait for me to say, write some names on your list. If people come to mind through the whole of this session, then just jot them down, obviously. I've said Jeff. She's going to be Jeff from now on.
I've renamed myself.
I love Jeff from Bristol. Brilliant. I'd want to join. How many have you got on your list, Lorraine, other than the two that you've got with dodgy upline potential? Oh, you're muted.
It is only two, three. One's a long shot, but it is the two that I met via my downline who literally blocks.
Yeah.
And I've met them in other ways via her.
Okay.
That's the two I think are saying to me when I meet them, I really love Nearshore Dramatists, but I can't always afford to buy it. That's a perfect opportunity to join, really.
Yeah, totally.
As a starting point. So, yes, I haven't got a big list at the moment. I don't get out very much.
That's fine. That's fine.
Especially with the platinum thing, we're forgetting that we've got this amazing opportunity, haven't we, to potentially get this box as well? So like for a therapist or somebody who's a real eager buyer, that's like a massive incentive, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So big buyers, big customers.
Yeah, and there were 16 new recruits on day one of that, on the 1st, in the middle of bank holiday weekend. Why? Because several people actually asked the question and started the conversation. More people join if you start the conversation statistically than if you just keep the conversation in your head, guys. That's the hot news. Okay, right, let's do the next video, because hopefully this is going to help you to add some more to your list. So I don't know, I always like to draw a line under the list at this point to see how many more names I'm going to add, or change pen color, or whatever you want to do. So now we're going to have Xenia watching herself. No, we're not.
Joy.
Where are we going now? Yes, no, we're going here. Yes, we're going to have Xenia talking to you for a few minutes. Okay, here we go. See how many you can brainstorm whilst you're listening to about 3 minutes of this.
On to some other reasons. So I'm going to just share with you, some of you will have seen these lists before, and particularly if you did our sheep drove day with Sharon and I in November. Gosh, that seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? So again, let me just read these out, because some of them are slightly different, and I'll share these afterwards as well. So
before Xenia reads them out, if these resonate with any of the people who are already on your list, put that reason next to their name. And for some people, you might have several reasons next to their name. And if it makes you think of someone else, put their name at the bottom of your list, yeah, as we go.
Again, income, discount, would like long-term potential of income. Somebody wants a new challenge, James got his there, well done. Someone who would benefit from personal growth. Somebody who's a bit bored. That could be somebody at the moment, couldn't it? Fed up with all the things that are going on. Someone who'd like to grow their confidence. Actually, with the training and the support that people get, absolutely, they can do that. Somebody who loves Neil-Jard remedies, loves the ethics. Somebody who's an advocate for sustainability. Somebody who wants to promote well-being. Somebody who enthuses about the products. Again, all of these, if you just pop a little star next to those names, some of those names will have 4, 5, 6 stars next to them. Somebody who wants to meet new people or extend their social circle. And on the flip side of that, somebody who knows lots of people. Actually, they've got lots of people to talk to. Somebody who's a therapist, somebody who could do this alongside another business, somebody who has a charity that they fundraise for, and somebody that needs this to be flexible around other things. So loads and loads of reasons why people join us. And lastly, I'm just going to use these because we've got all the resources. So reasons that therapists join. So to use in treatments, it's a low startup cost. We know with some companies, therapists have to invest a lot of money. Therapists can reach out to clients. It's a great way of promoting holistic well-being. It can grow a client base. A therapist that needs extra income. A therapist who needs to network more. A therapist who loves the brand. A therapist that wants to introduce organic products into their treatments and extend the treatments that they have. I always say this, you know, for therapists, it's not about don't use that brand anymore because Neil-Jard remedies is better. Well, I know there's a lot of time, but that's not what I'm going to say to somebody. It's actually about expanding their business and still using the products that they have because they have a customer base for that, but actually producing organic treatments as well. Actually, for a therapist, it's a pension plan. It's got huge income potential and helps balance business. Sorry, I'm going to stop my phone pinging away. Balancing business skills with therapy. And let me just look down the reasons people join on the other side. I think we've covered all of those. Well, raising funds for something, absolutely saving for something in particular. Often people join actually towards the autumn because they want to pay for Christmas. But actually at the moment, you know, people are saving up for all sorts of things. Will, you know, save up for weddings or holidays or kids' schools, whatever it might be. So loads and loads of reasons that we can look at that list of 10 people and think about who might want to join us and all of those reasons why. Okay.
Again, as I said, you know, just take another look at that video in its entirety to refresh your minds, but just wondered how many you'd added to your list, or perhaps reasons next to people's names. Any feedback before we go somewhere else? Okay, 2 more new people, Hazel, that's great. That's nearly doubled your list. Think of it as a percentage. Two from previously, Serena, or 2 that you've added?
No, my brain went blank earlier, so I've only got 2. I'm
Okay.
going through my contacts now, messaging. I'm on it.
Okay, that's fine. Michelle's added 1 more. Great. Okay, so yeah, so just keep adding. Some looking for new people, and Sarah, a few categories of places and businesses. That's great. Now subcategories. Now that's good, Jenny, that's good. And I was going to say to you earlier, and then we moved on, one of the things to consider perhaps is businesses or groups locally to get into, which I'm sure you're already on, but you kind of need to do the groundbreaking precursor to this, don't you? But
Yeah.
at this point, I just thought it'd be really helpful for those of you who haven't seen it. Xenia, would you be happy to share your poster that you had made up that's behind you?
Yeah.
Because I think what we're going to do now is move away from brainstorming lists into general advertising, general looking for people when we're out and about. So in light of what I just said to Jenny, it's true for all of us. Xenia,
I'm only showing my poster.
how great is that? It kind of says it as it is.
Yeah. So I was doing a biggish show a couple of weeks ago, and I knew that I'd got into a real routine of selling, and I need to recruit more people and I need more hosts. So I went back to basics of whenever I trained out how to do an event, it was always our table was in thirds. A third for recruitment, a third for parties, and a third for selling. And my selling had just got bigger and bigger. And that's funny that I then didn't recruit anyone and didn't get any new hosts. So I just thought, I was just chatting with a couple of my team, and actually there was a comment on another call from another leader who said something about having a poster that just said something about earning money. And I thought right now, lots and lots of people need some extra income or are worried about outgoings. So they may not have even thought about they need extra income. They're just worried about their outgoings and they can't make their money stretch any further. So I thought, well, and one of my ladies I was chatting to, and because she was doing an event soon, and I said, how about a poster that says, you know, talk to me about earning? And she was like, oh, I don't know, that makes me feel quite uncomfortable. And she's very much a recruiter. So I was like, okay, what makes you feel uncomfortable? What about if I put the word ethical in there? She's like, oh yes, that's much better. So I thought, well, I'll then go, well, earn with an ethical company, put a plant with it, make the text green, and suddenly I'm now talking much more to people who might be interested in a sustainable, ethical business, not just a money-making venture. So that's where my head went round and round. And I literally did this on WordSwag. I went onto the first bit, which has got background pictures. I didn't know what I was looking for, but it came up with a plant. I found a colour for the text in the same colour as the plant, and I had it printed through Solo Press. So it was that simple. I literally, in about 8 minutes, went from this is what I need to do, this is the word swag, upload it to Solo Press, get it printed, and it came the next day. And that's sort of how I work, as you know, seat of my pants.
Love it. So what I wanted to do there was a bit of a transition from a brainstorm of a list of people that you already know to messaging that catches people that you don't know and you've got no idea that they're interested. And how do you kind of catch those people? And often when I'm talking about recruiting, I talk about it's a bit like fishing. So what we've just done is the line fishing. You've made a list of people that you are deliberately targeting one-on-one. So you're sending out a line from your rod to kind of hook that fish, because actually what you should have is a list of reasons why that person might be interested in joining. And then in a little while, we'll do a section on starting that conversation with them. But what we're moving into and what Xenia is talking about is net fishing. You chuck your net out there, you send the message out at a fair or an event, or when you're doing a party or on social media, whatever, you've got no idea what you're going to catch. And sometimes all you get is an expression of interest, and sometimes that results in a recruit, but sometimes it results in a customer or a host or a dead lead. It just doesn't go anywhere. Think of it like a boot or a shopping trolley. You know, your net just caught stuff that isn't what your aim was, but that doesn't matter. The exciting bit about this kind of sort of more general advertising of recruiting is there's an element of anticipation about it. So actually, as Xenia goes to an event, to carry on that analogy, armed with her poster, inside she's kind of thinking, I want to recruit and I've got no idea who I'm going to meet today. Maybe my next team leader is here. Maybe my next new recruit is here. Maybe I'm going to find 3 potentials, one of whom's going to join this month. Just don't know. And I think if you can come at that general advertising with that kind of energy, it can actually, on law of attraction, be really powerful. If you doubt it, imagine Xenia going to that event armed with her poster going, I don't know, I had this made, to be honest, it's probably not going to work. What is the energy that she puts out into the universe at that point? So mindset here is key. But what I did a couple of summers ago, I asked a couple of experienced leaders in my downline to share their top tips on recruiting. And what I've done is I've got 2 snippets on general net fishing from somebody who is very process orientated, very organized, not a naturally kind of people connectory kind of leader, and then a completely different kind of leader who is very vivacious. She's like a bumblebee in her social ability. So you've got 2 completely different perspectives, and you're right. It's Ruth, but it isn't Shay. So here we go. You can enjoy. Reason I chose 2 completely different natures is that actually there'll be things probably from each of them that are takeaways for us, because this isn't about who you resonate with. It is actually, what has that person who's different from me got a perspective on that actually is going to help me improve my business? Because we all need balance, don't we, to our own natural tendencies. So if it makes you think of new things that you want to do, start a bit of an action list, little kind of to-dos that you're going to just tweak and fine-tune your general advertising of recruiting, or your mindset, or whatever it is, as they speak. Okay, here's the first one.
Getting the message out there. I was always taught that at every event, whether that's a party or a workshop or at a fair, to promote the 3 opportunities that people have to join us, to host for us, or to shop. And so I will always have, see a recruiting poster? Can you see that?
Yeah.
On my display, on my tabletop display. It may not be A4.
Sean,
A remote event or a virtual event.
Yeah.
we can't seem to see Ruth.
Okay, can you if I do it like this?
No, we can only see each other still.
Ah.
You click the share at the bottom.
Oh, that would be useful, wouldn't it? I was seeing her. I was fine.
You were really enjoying it.
It was really good. Right, hang on. Let me just rewind a little bit. You can see her poster.
Perspective on the same subject, and then we'll move on to the next section.
Okay, where are we? There we go.
Or a workshop or at a fair, to promote the 3 opportunities that people have to join us, to host for us, or to shop. And so I will always have, see a recruiting poster? Can you see that?
Yeah.
On my display, on my tabletop display. It may not be A4. If it's a remote event or a virtual event, I find I have to go to A5 size. But I will always have a poster and an image about recruiting at an event. And I will always have an information pack available. And that can take several forms. That might be something in a clear cello pack. It might be something in an envelope. or it might be something in a little bag. It will be on my table or in my somewhere visible that people can be curious and ask about. I tend to make up 2 kinds of them for each event. I will have one that's targeted to people like myself who aren't a therapist or a beautician or a practitioner of any kind, and one that is targeted to more to therapists, for want of a better word. And in it, I'll have a selection of things, some samples, maybe a tea bag, a little card that gives the reasons that people join us. I will include this leaflet that's available to purchase in Business Tools, which is called Grow Your Own Business with NYR Organic. I might include one of the recruiting posters.
Guys, I'm just pausing. The material that Ruth is talking about here was from a couple of summers ago. We have got new recruiting material coming at some point, so don't worry about the content so much. It's more about resources that you've got, some of which are still available. The bookmark, for instance, that she's just showed and that Xenia referred to in the last video. If you haven't got any of those, shout, because we've both got plenty of those that we can put a bundle into the post for you. But, you know, go with the principle of an information pack for people to read.
Are available to buy in the NYR shop. Some information about similar information, but in a different format. Why you would join and what NYR offers, and just some questions. Usually a mini brochure, copy of the current kit items out of downloads. We have 2 kits at the minute, so there's 2 copies in there. I always include the success start, current success start. I'll tell you why in a minute. And I always include the host leaflet. And for the therapists, I include the skin consultation document. I also include that in the other pack. The only difference really in the non-therapist pack is the postcards, because there are different postcards targeted to different groups. And the reason I include the host literature is to let people see that the company do actually produce a lot of material that help us to run our business, give them an idea of how to run the business. And the skincare one for beauticians and therapists is really useful, but also for people like me who joined. This is really helpful for me personally and for me to help my customers. I include the success start information because all of this information is a tool for me to talk about something that's important in the recruiting process. And success start is one of the things that I want to mention when people are interested in joining. So that's the sort of information I include and have when I'm thinking about information that people might need and promoting the opportunity to join. Next point, Shan. Yeah, socially, I tend to talk about what I do in social context. So if I meet someone and they ask how I am, I might say something like, oh yeah, I'm well, thanks. I've been busy. We had a launch last week of new products in my business, but I don't tell them what that is. And of course they will say, oh, what's that? What do you do? And then I get to talk about my business. So they get to know what I do. I post regularly in social media, not just when there's a recruitment campaign, and quite often I target the message to particular groups. So I might have a post when I'm out walking my dog of me and the dog having a nice time, and that might turn into a post that says I love having the flexibility in my job to go out when it's sunny and take time during the day. Or it might be something that I target to therapists, offering the opportunity to have organic products in their business. And I don't just do that during a campaign. And I don't usually post the details of a kit or anything like that. It's usually a more subtle message to try and get people interested in talking about what the detail is. I do get referrals from people who know that I work.
Okay, we're going to stop it there because that's the most relevant bit, I think. And without further ado, what I'm going to do is move on to the other angle on that from a different personality. There we go. Here we go. Sorry, I'm not sure that is the one. Hang on. I think this might have been. Yeah, sorry about that. I just picked the wrong one.
So yeah, I would say, especially if you've not recruited before, then it can be a little bit daunting. I have to say, I was a slow starter. I naturally sell, and I was so focused on the products. I just kind of thought, how are people doing this? Like it just seemed a mystery. And once I stopped worrying about it, and then just thought, you know what, I'll just start with the obvious ones. So I asked everyone I could think of who I knew, and actually some of them joined, much to my surprise. And it kind of went from there, because once you've got one, then it builds your confidence. So, oh, actually I can do this. And then you just start building on your list. So you probably heard of Frank List, and it will get mentioned again, so I'm not going to spend time on that now, but you've got to keep building those lists of people you meet everywhere you go. And you just want to just find ways to have conversations, basically, speak to people all of the time, and start off with friends because that's familiar, but some people are better kept as friends, so don't be a pest. But over the 8 years I've been a consultant, pretty much most of my family at some point have joined, and most of them are just shoppers. Some of them do party, but they are brilliant at promoting it to me. So if you've got supportive friends and family around you that you think will be interested, I've got one member of my family who has not got the time of day for Neil's Yard. I still find to this day really odd, but it's my brother, he's my brother, he can stay as my brother. So, you kind of need to get that vibe as well, that sometimes people really just are not interested, even if you wonder why the hell they're not. But keep speaking to people all the time, because and actually if you don't know this, you need to get a thick skin. Most people's default first response is, no, I couldn't do that, because often they don't understand what it is you're asking them to do. So be prepared for the no's, but still keep talking to people, because the more people you talk to, and also it gives them a chance to get to know you, and you get to know them a little bit over time when they start to understand what it is we're doing or what you're doing. I bet some of them will join. And I've had people that 6 years down the line have said, I'm ready now, and I'm like, yay, I knew they'd join one day. So I do go for more of a softly approach, because that's just my personality. But as Sian said, both Ruth and I have very different approaches, but actually we're both quite good at recruiting. So what I'm trying to get there is that there's no sort of set rule, because you will find your own way of talking to people, communicating with people. You'll find your own style. So yeah, but just remember that when people say no, it's not always no forever. So what you're doing is planting those seeds, putting that idea into their head that you think they'd be good at this. And often people don't think they'll be good at it. They think they have to be trained in some special magic to be able to do direct sales. But the fact is, anyone can do it. And you know that once people are in, they get all the training and the support. So plant those seeds, stay connected. And when those people are ready, they will know that you're there to support them, and hopefully they will still come to you. But as Ruth said, if you don't stay connected, they're very likely to go and join down the road with someone else, or even worse, another company. And, you know, I've had people who I'm thinking are not interested at all and not paying any attention. They're watching. So they'll be watching what you're doing. They'll be wanting to see, how are you progressing? How is that business going for you? Because they might just need that little bit of extra courage, or to see, oh, actually they're doing really well, so there is something in this business. And yeah, okay, maybe I will join after all. And people quite often say to me, oh, I've been watching you on Facebook. I'm like, really? You never comment, you never like anything. So I've got no idea, but then I'll actually meet them and go, oh yeah, I've seen you. Yeah, oh, you're that woman, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, actually I am. So it's like, you can feel like you're putting stuff out there onto deaf ears, but you're not. And just be consistent, keep going, and be very careful, though, that as has come up, don't fixate on one person. Because that's the other thing that I got caught into very early on, was that I was so desperate for a certain person to join, because I just thought they were going to be brilliant and I wanted to work with them. I wanted them on the team. That while I was fixating on that person, 5 more were walking past. And I hadn't even noticed them, because all my attention was over here on this one person that I just thought was going to be brilliant and was going to change my business. But actually, if they don't say yes straight away, you're just wasting your time, because as long as you're keeping connected over time, I've written loads of notes down, they'll come when they're ready. And if they don't, well, you haven't wasted your time just putting all your energy into that person. So I did a lot of partying when I first joined. As I said, my natural thing is as a seller. I love selling the products. And I did recruit all my hosts, pretty much. And then I'm like, what am I going to do now? Who's going to join my business now? So I learned to do events. However, if you just sign up all your hosts, don't assume that they're going to do the business the way you do. You need to stay really connected to them, just as you would any other new joiner that you've met anywhere else, because you've already made a connection to all those customers that you would have met probably in that party where you met that host. They don't always do the follow-up, and you could lose a whole raft of customers that you had. So I don't want to confuse you there, but by saying, but be careful if they join, you want to get it really clear that they're joining and they are going to do the business. Because if they're just joining because they've decided they want to be a shopper, they're not going to sell to all those customers who are in that party. So make it really clear with them that if they're just joining because they want to be a shopper, that you can still connect with their friends that were the customers. They might change their mind later, but you work that out because we've built up that relationship. But that did happen to me a few times where the host joined, so I assumed, oh great, they're just going to carry on and keep selling to all their friends and it will expand, and they didn't. And then there was 10 potential other joiners and customers in that room that I'd lost. So don't fixate on it, but it really goes down to the conversations with people when they join of what they want and how that's going to work. And be really generous when you're at big events, sending out catalogues and samples to people. As Ruth said, she will always send out mini catalogue samples, all that information. During lockdown, had people contact me online, and I've sent them a full-size catalogue, and I've stuck the samples in the catalogue, so they need to go through it to find the samples, and I've put all the other information as well, and I've had people join because I've done that. So if someone's actually showing what you feel is some genuine interest, be generous with those big catalogues as well, because they see your shop front, that is going to be their shop front as well, and they understand the full extent of what's available to them if they're interested in product. don't get fixated on the products, because obviously we're selling them the opportunity and they need to make the opportunity work for them. But don't have a lovely neat pile of catalogues at home. You need to give them out. And as I was saying as a host, you need to have a plan on how you will stay in touch, because you probably find, especially because we're now in this virtual world, some people are using text, some are using WhatsApp, some are using Messenger, some like the voice, Zoom as we are now because they like the face-to-face. There may be more opportunities where we can actually meet out and about now, but actually email, all those different ways of being in contact. Find out from the people you meet what they're happy to have from you. Do they want you on, so a lot of people say, well, put me on the newsletter. Others go, no, I don't want to be on the newsletter, but it's fine to text me. So once you've got that permission, make sure you do it. Don't just write them off because they haven't reacted in the way that you want the first time you talk to them. But then they're expecting to hear from you, and they're not surprised when they get a text or an email, that kind of thing. So yeah, so the other thing with the networking, I like meeting people and chatting to people, and I think most people in direct selling do. That's, you know, it's a people's business. And over the years, I've joined lots of different networking groups. Some of them are quite a nightmare, I have to say. Some of them have been really fruitful, but I would say be discerning. Don't just join every group that comes your way. You won't be able to manage it all anyway. But actually, some of them I found quite cliquey. So I'd be spending my time and actually not really talking to anyone because people just talked to who they knew. I found the Facebook groups where I can interact and have proper conversation have been really fruitful. And again, it's finding the ones that are based around something that you're interested in. So whether it's because you're a therapist or nutrition or sport or just other direct sellers, it actually really doesn't matter. But where they're active in the group and they're striking up conversation, the one down here locally that's worked really well, and it's all over the country, could you look up your local one, is NEBA, which is Mums in Business. And they seem very well structured, and very set posts that encourage you to join in. So you're not always talking about Mills Yard, you're literally interacting with people. And the more active ones that I've joined, people have then private messaged me because of what I've been putting on, just generally what I do. And they're getting a feel for who you are as a person. So don't just go into groups and go, hey, I'm selling this, oh, I've got that, because that doesn't really go down very well. You've got to spend a bit of time so people get used to you and get to know you and see what you're about.
Okay, light on moments in the chat, so it's nice and pacey, so I want us to have time to do the last bit. 16 new messages. Oh goodness, here we go. Oh, that was all about not being able to see it because I hadn't hit share. Ruth inspires your blue behavior. Yeah, very organized. Yeah, it's great. Aren't they so different in their approaches? Nothing in the chat yet. Okay, if you've got light on moments, put those in the chat. So I think that's another key thing in recruiting, is that you've got that general drip feeding information into everything that you're doing, whether that is chat with individual people, or whether that is the way you lay out displays in your treatment room, at fairs and events, in parties and workshops, whether that's online or face to face. You know, going back to what Xenia said about that table being in thirds, that's a pretty good principle for any conversation, advertising, number of posts on social media. You know, if you take that rule of thirds, it's you know, you're not going to go far wrong, really. Okay, so hopefully what you've done, guys, as well, is just jot things that, as we've come out of the pandemic, perhaps are areas for you that you haven't particularly worked, or, you know, like I was wondering, Jenny, whether you'd got into networking stuff locally, and not just for you, but for all of us. There'll be hopefully just elements and angles of what was happening there that is inspired or freshly inspired you. And that session, as I said, Ruth and Emma together, really helpful for totally different perspectives on the whole recruiting process. So please go back and watch the whole video. That was just one particular section of it. So just to finish off, I've got a few minutes of Xenia again, chatting through actually starting the conversation. So we're going to do a little bit on that, so that hopefully out of the ideas and the to-do list that you've written down and the names that you've brainstormed, you can now then go away and initiate some of this and start, you know, converting some of them. So we've just got about 4 minutes on this particular section, and, you know, again, put into the chat if there are light on moments as we go.
Right. So what do we say? Now, I've just put a few little ideas here. So with, let's go with the conversation, a phone call first. You've got to make sure that when you pick up the phone and you speak to somebody, have in your mind your reasons that you are calling them. So the little asterisks that you put next to your sparkle list. Oh, and by the way, I hope you did your homework from last week. We're not.
Okay, sorry, just to pause there, the asterisks were reasons why that person might like to join. So what we did in the exercise previously was we just starred the names against each of the activities. What I've asked you to do is actually write the reasons why that person might be joining, why it might be best fit for them. So it's having those in your mind.
Marking it, it's entirely up to you. You are an independent consultant. So if you did your list and you've got some extra little asterisks next to people's names about people that you think would benefit from joining you, when you give them a call, you need to warm up. Bear in mind, whenever you contact somebody, so whenever our phone rings or whenever a message pings through, you're generally not expecting it. So it's going to be a surprise for the other person that you're contacting them. So you have to do a warm up, don't you? You know why you're ringing, but you need to do the hi, how are you? I remember you loved the hand cream when we met. I'm thinking about you because when I last saw you, you really loved the frankincense hydrating cream. All these sorts of things. And make sure that you use your language. Again, last week, I think I mentioned, you shouldn't use my language, my vocabulary. You shouldn't think, oh, Sian's on my shoulder, she would say this. You need to sound really credible when you're talking to people. So use your own language, whichever words you feel comfortable with, phraseology you would use, make sure that you build that rapport, because when you sound like you're much more comfortable in that conversation and you build the relationship much more quickly. So if you're ringing them, I just, out of politeness, always say, have you got time for a quick chat? The reason I'm calling you is because, and get to that reason quite quickly so that it's not weird. You know, we know when someone rings us that you haven't heard from a while and for a while, and you're always on the end of the phone thinking, what do you want? What do you want? You're kind of on tenterhooks. So get to that point quickly. Make sure that, you know, they're clear about what you're going to talk about, and just check to make sure it's okay to have that conversation at that point. If you're messaging, again, you need to get a little bit of rapport. So the hi, how are you? Been thinking of you because da da da. And of course, particularly with Messenger, we don't know whether they can reply straight away. So don't feel put off if they don't reply straight away. They could well be doing something else and can't reply. Always put yourself in the other person's shoes. And again, this is something I talk about with whatever we do, to make sure when you're thinking of calling them, think about how you're being received. When you message somebody, think about, okay, they might not be replying to me straight away, or does this sound too quick to go in with the information? Have I done enough of the hi, how are you, been thinking about you type of conversation to warm it all up? And if you're calling somebody and it's not okay to chat at that moment, just say to them, the reason I was calling you was because of, I was thinking about you and your treatments, and I know we've talked before about you wanting organic products. I was just going to have a quick chat with you about that. Just then ask permission and say, would you like me to pop something in a chat for you in a Facebook Messenger or whatever, or I could pop something in the post. So actually you've then got another reason to follow up. So we'll get back to what you put in the post a little bit later in the call before those questions pop up. And when you're having the conversation, it's not a brain dump. It's not just a monologue, it is a conversation between two of you. So make sure that you hold some of the information back, and as the conversation flows or the messages flow, you will get all the salient information out as you move along. But don't just go, oh yeah, and I want to tell you this, and the way you join is this, and what you can do is this, and the training we have is amazing, and blah, 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 because we all get so excited because we're so passionate about what we do. So make sure that you just hold back a little bit. It's, you know, a little bit playing hard to get, I suppose. Any questions moving along?
Okay, there we go. There's the initial bit. Now, not surprisingly, what we haven't done there is go into all the details of the ongoing conversation, but I want to just have some time for that warm-up bit, and like Xenia said, not the brain dump, the beginning of a conversation, checking to see whether now's a good time for them, that kind of thing. Yeah, playing hard to get. What that sets up is a transactional dynamic between you and that other person. It says, I'm not making any assumptions. I'm just having a conversation with you about whether this is the best fit. It takes away all of the pleading or all of the hard sell or all of the kind of weird persuasive vibe that makes both parties feel awkward. So that checking in bit, I cannot emphasize enough how much that changes the backwards and forwards. I was thinking earlier about what we were saying about good boundaries around people who don't reply to stuff. And I don't know if you do this with people who, you know, take it outside of work, just even friends. I think of it a bit like a game of tennis. So that kind of, well, look, the door's always open, you be in touch when you want to be, is kind of, think of it like batting the ball back across the net. It's like, well, it's over to you now to hit it back if you want to carry on playing the game. You can't play tennis if only one of you is hitting the ball across the net. It doesn't work. And so this transactional thing is a bit similar. Think of it as, you know, is now a good time to chat? A couple of things I wanted to tell you about that. And then you've got to wait for them to reply. And if, as Xenia says, they're busy, they're out for the evening or they're watching a film or whatever, you're going to have to wait a little while before that ball comes back. Remember Emma's comment, don't fixate on one person. So don't sit there with your phone. Why haven't they replied? Ping another message to somebody else, or go and do something else. Go and make up some packs, or go and do some customer follow-up or whatever. Just wait for the reply to come. They bat something back. You can then continue the conversation. I actually wanted to pick up with you about what you were saying about possibly using the products in your treatment room. Is now a good time? That. And if you keep...
Is there loss?
Keep thinking...
Is there loss?
What's their loss?
Well, if they don't reply and don't want to come back to you and learn more and get all excited, eh?
That's true, Holly, but what I'm trying to also say is that it's about transaction across, not just how to handle people who don't reply. What I'm saying is almost the shorter the messages, the better, because your end goal is to receive as much information, glean as much information as you're going to give, at least, if not more. So unless your messages are short and you've got that kind of tennis transaction backwards and forwards, you're going to have given away a lot more information and made a lot more assumptions probably along the road than is necessary. Taking up that transactional tennis vibe will mean that the rest will just come. As Xenia said in that clip, you will find that you just say what is needed in the conversation, because they'll either ask you the question or you'll remember to say it. But it's not a well-constructed kind of performance. You're not doing a monologue. You haven't got to put it all in the first message. You're just kind of going to say it as it goes back and forth. And at that point, the fact that you're using your own language and your own vibe with that particular individual will mean that it will just flow. You don't have to orchestrate it. And you can trust your judgment on the way that it goes. What I would just say is that one of the things that's really good to do is when you ask a question in the chat, whether that's a conversation or in message, when you've got the answer back, try and think of another question that does a bit of a deeper dive. So you might ask a question like, oh, give me a question. Do you think your friends would be interested if you decided to join? Do you think your friends would be interested in getting together and having a bit of a launch event, or your clients? Something like that might come up in the conversation. And if they say, yeah, I think that would be good, awesome, which sort of part of the range do you think we should start with to show them? Something like that, where you're doing another dive into the conversation. You know, if looking at the bookmark that I sent you, which of the things grabbed your interest? Well, actually, you know, I already love the product and I'm really interested in sustainable brands. Rather than saying that's great, say that's awesome, were there any others that you were interested in? It's kind of like a layer of the onion beyond. The reason I'm saying that that's a good kind of strategy to build is that it helps you get information that isn't obvious. So it helps you kind of glean more of where that person is coming from, and that will help you in the dynamics of positioning, you know, whether this is best fit for them or not. I think what those questions also do is they help the other person engage with why they're entertaining this. So going back to what we were saying at the beginning about people joining and then not doing anything, what you want in an ideal situation is somebody who's really clear about, I do want to do this and these are the reasons why. This is kind of what I want to get out of this. This is how I see this fitting in my life. And the more questions you ask, the more they're going to be kind of processing those reasons as they go. Getting better at breaking up my monologues. Love that. Oh, Serena, have you got to go, lovely?
No, could I ask a quick question?
Oh, it was a wave.
Sorry.
Yes,
it was
okay.
a wave, sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Just going backwards slightly, sorry.
No, go for it.
Obviously, once you get all the conversation going, but if you were to message somebody that you didn't know, so for instance, therapists, local therapists that you don't know, how would you initially start that conversation with trying to get them on board? What would be, like you say, keeping it short, but without coming across really kind of like, join my team, you know, how would you softly sort of approach somebody that you've never met before?
Yeah, okay, so I think it'd be really interesting to get different takes on this. I think the one that I particularly like is I wanted to ask you about the products that you use in your treatment rooms at the moment, because then it's about product and organic conversation and brand. Get an answer to that and say, you know, then you could lead on into the reason I'm asking that is because I wondered if you'd ever considered using Neil Shard Remedies products, having perhaps an organic angle on your treatments, or using products with aromatherapeutic benefit, or whatever your secondary pitch is going to be, but start with the products is where I'd start.
Brilliant, thank you.
Xenia, do you want to answer that?
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, Holly, yeah, we'll come to you. Yeah. Xenia?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't unmute. I'm clicking it, unmute. Yeah, I think it's always starting with a conversation, a question to do with their business. It's always about them. So yes, what treatments are you offering? Do you use products in treatments? What range of products do you use? That kind of vibe. And then being able to follow up if they are interested with sending some samples for them to use, particularly for a therapist, so that for those of you who are therapists, it's so important to know about texture and the product consistency and whether they would want to use it in a treatment. And once you've sent some things, then you've got another reason to follow up as well.
So would you say early on about sort of expanding your team? Would that be something that you would say about recruiting, you know, joining for them to, because otherwise you're sort of asking about what they're doing, which I completely understand, so what products they're using in their treatments, etc. But would I need to say a purpose initially for my reason, because it's a bit kind of random, isn't it, just somebody messaging asking you that? Would you sort of say about joining, you know, expanding your team, or joining an ethical company?
I think probably not expanding your team. So again, make it about her. So
Them, yeah.
it's about them opening an account so they can access the products
And
rather
a
than
potential
I'm expanding my team.
yeah, okay, so for them to earn an extra income basically.
Well, to earn an extra income, but also to just to be able to access the products, you know, of the brand to use in their treatments. And then quite often the thing that I ask is, actually a lot of therapists find that there are all sorts of other benefits to having an account with Neilshad Remedies. Would you like me to tell you what those are? And if they say yes, you can send them I use the screenshot of the back of the bookmark, the reasons why therapists join. And I say to them, which of the ones on that list are you curious about, or would you like to know more about?
I
Yeah.
also think what Lorraine said in the chat is really true about, you know, so many therapists will message me saying, have you heard about this product? That you can see I've already got a product range, so it's so impersonable. So I think it's really important to actually have a conversation, because I had a message the other day going, oh hi, I love your stuff, and she was really genuine, and the second thing she said was, I'd like you to be a part of this. And I think I would more focus on building a relationship and go, oh, I see you're local, and how are you finding after the pandemic? And you know, yeah, I do Neilshad Remedies as well. Like, having a natural conversation is so unique compared to those spammy messages. So I think it's just that line, isn't it, of
not going
being
in
natural,
too
being
fast.
yourself. Yeah, exactly. And then really, I think as soon as somebody's following you back, they can see what you do. So it's that, and interacting with each other's stuff, so commenting on things, you know, building that rapport is the basis of it, isn't it? For all of us. It's like getting a new client, isn't it? When you can see they're liking things, or somebody's liking things. Thanks so much for liking my stuff. And it's that kind of going from there, isn't it? From the ground up.
Yeah, I guess it depends where you're at in the process, Serena, because I think that, you know, what you've just said, Holly, is important. I in your question, I'd assumed you'd got past that initial contact and you were now kind of going in having formed a basis of relationship. If you haven't, then absolutely doing lots and lots of that softly rapport building is important first.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, Lorraine, you've picked on a good point there. I think therapists get so many messages that are, you know, just blanket, impersonal, spammy, I think was your word, Holly, that you just don't want it to be seen as that. I think build the rapport and you know, see where it goes really first.
Yeah, and I think it is about them expanding their treatments. I'm not sure I would necessarily say it's about additional income, because they've already got an income, and I think it could sound disrespectful of what they've got at the moment, that you're presuming they need extra income. So just, I think it's more about expansion and building a business.
Yeah, and some therapists join basically thinking of this as like going to the wholesaler. You know, it is no more than being able to access the product. It isn't about income. Then, you know, but then that's why I love the back of that bookmark, because I could retail to clients, couldn't I hadn't thought of that. Is, you know, because they've come into it thinking wholesale perspective, because that's what they've always done. Yeah, look at that shelf, that is a shrine. That's but do you know what I mean? Actually, the other things that come into okay, let's have a conversation about what you don't know. Other things that are potential, if you've learned under a particular beauty house and you couldn't access that account for several thousand a year, and you've gone to the wholesaler, that is the only bit that you're coming at this from. Let's just see whether that's a brand you want. This is a brand you want to do that with, and then when they're interested in that, you can say, actually, there are other things. I don't know. Shall I tell you about that? And then the other conversations open up. Is that helpful? Yeah, good. Okay, guys, it's 20 past, so we're going to stop. But I really hope tonight has helped to refresh. As I said, you've got all that section on recruiting in the YouTube channel to review as and when it's useful. But the key thing, I think, is to, like we did in the Booking Blitz the other night, is just to ping out a few messages. Start a few conversations. If you've got 2 or 3 on your list, there you go. There's your first few conversations. Statistically, from no conversation at all, 1 in 10 will say yes. If you've had the conversation before, that statistic is down to 1 in 3. And this month, with so much going on, with heritage boxes being added to kits, 10 platinum tickets in kits, 10 people will get them free, incentives that are going on, you know, the Beehive incentive that I launched just at the end of last month. All of that, those are good reasons. But actually, I just wanted to finish tonight by saying it's not about us, and it's about what is best fit for other people. All of those are lovely lollipops along the way, but they're not good reasons for joining. The reasons for joining are what the person wants this to do for them in their lives after they've joined. Think of the kit as just the key to being part of NY Organic and the community and access to the product. Yeah, and the rest is nice to have, isn't it? And if it's now not now at the moment, thank you, or no response, move on. Ask the next one. Okay, so I guess going out of tonight, the first thing to do is to make that little brainstormy list bigger by doing the same thing as we did with our hosts in the booking blitz, by thinking, okay, so who bought in the sale, and who of my mates have I just messaged on WhatsApp who I'd love to work with? I just think, oh, come and have a laugh with me, you know, and all of that dynamic. Just brainstorming your list from as many angles as possible. And remember the fishing analogy, lines and nets. So the specific people, and then the how am I going to change up my messaging on my social media, at fairs and events, in my treatment room, you know, where's your recruiting display, is how big a message is that? Is that a third of my volume? Like Xenia was saying, a third of her table, because it will. The analogy, I love that, Xenia. You know, my selling and selling got bigger and bigger, and my recruiting and booking got smaller and smaller. Funny that, and some of you smiled, but actually the same is true of our volume, isn't it? If all we do on social media is sell product, how can we expect our booking and recruiting to come from social media? And same in our treatment rooms and in our displays. Glad it's been helpful. A life-size Hazel, I've got to just see that before we finish. Maybe a life-size Hazel holding a booking board. Yeah, go for it, Hazel. Why not? All
That
right.
won't be expensive.
Pardon?
That won't be expensive.
That won't be expensive. I know. It's going to take 3 weeks to have that designed now. No, just the list.
You see, my head immediately went to when they put those things up in cinemas. Which famous film star could I acquire?
Yeah. I think the new James Bond is about to come out, isn't it? I reckon that on the corner of your display might be quite eye-catching. That beats the diffuser, doesn't it?
Yeah, and some male smells as well.
Kicks my poster into the long grass, doesn't it?
Yeah. But thank you, Xenia, for your poster, because I've made a few already, but with different things for social media, so it's really useful. Thanks so much.
That's great. Good. All right. Have a good rest of the evening, everybody.
Yeah.